It's finally happening. Dune Awakening has been out in full force at Gamescom, and we finally saw more than just a small glimpse of the game. In fact, they actually showcased us around 30 minutes of gameplay, which you also see here running in the background. I will put the link to the full video in the description. If you want to watch it yourself without me talking over it, you can, of course, do that. But let's talk about what they have shown. And first, what they haven't really shown, because nobody was really allowed to play it. Like when you were at Gamescom, the only thing you literally just saw was the video you can also now watch on YouTube. There have been some content creators which were apparently able to play the game for a few hours, but they are not allowed to talk about it, so that doesn't really do much. And we also know, of course, that there is a closed beta running 24/7, but that is completely under NDA and nobody is allowed to talk about it. So we have to work with what we got here from the video. And one thing before we jump into this, I really want to make clear. I don't care about the FPS issues. I don't care about like some of the animations are still looking a little bit wonky, a little bit wooden. I'm hoping that they will fix all of that in 9 or even more months they're working on the game. So I will ignore that for now, especially when they had like a specific build just made for the footage and all that. Like there is more to this, and I saw already people complaining about like some of the FPS and some of the animations, and I'm like, folks, you have no idea how old this build is, right? So let's wait for that. But with that said, let's focus on the gameplay. First things first, they talked about the first player experience, and I know that especially veterans will go, yeah, not really interesting. You have to understand that when new people are coming into the survival genre, there's a lot to learn. And let's be frank here, a lot of survival games do not do a great job to explain you the basics. This is why people like me actually exist, to explain to you things on YouTube. But the reality is also that a lot of people don't want to go to another place to just learn the basics about the video game. And I can totally understand when the developer says, okay, let's see if we can alleviate that and if we can make that a little bit easier on the players. So you're going through like a tutorial thing where they're explaining the basic of survival to you. I think that's a pretty good idea. And I'm glad that they're doing it, because that means we will probably have more players which are actually sticking with the game and will not give up after 30 minutes because it is just information overload, right? And then they showed us like a little bit of early game from the game where you were crashing on Arrakis, and then you were hunted by a sandworm and you were trying to survive in the heat. So you're not allowed to really stand in the sun. You move from shadow to shadow. And of course, later on, I assume that you can just, when there's a day and night cycle, night is actually the one where you want to do the most because the burning sun is not out. But they haven't really showed too much of the night cycle, which is interesting. They only showed it once for a brief moment, and that was that. We have to see how this really will affect the gameplay later on. But yeah, they showed the earlier game. It's pretty much what you expect, right? You have nothing on you. You have to survive in a harsh environment. You have to get your food. You have to get your water. Even though they haven't really talked about the food yet, I'm curious how that goes. They only showed us the water. I wonder if there even is food in the game, or if they would just ignore that. But water is definitely a big part of the game. They showed us that you can get um, some leaves and flowers and all that, and there will be a little bit of water in there. But there will be also super poisonous, so you don't really want to do that too often. And I'm really curious how important water will be through the game. Like, not just what the developers are telling us, but the actual like water usage, because we have this in survival games where at the beginning you are struggling with the basics and then you're reaching a certain point where you never really care for water or food anymore, or there are survival games where you are literally just focusing on that 24/7 and you are not really playing the game, right? It's just, oh gosh, where do I get my next food? Where do I get my next water? And that's the only thing you are looking for. I'm hoping they find a good middle ground where water is not completely useless at a certain point or unimportant, And I'm also hoping that this will not be a game where you have to go out into the game every 10 minutes to hopefully find some water to survive. They did show, speaking of water, let's keep on that. They did show very briefly that you can take the blood of the killed enemies and then you can purify the blood later on to just get the water out of it and then you can drink it. And it seems like there's a lot coming out of it. So, yeah, we will see how this actually plays out. Speaking about killing enemies, let's talk about the combat they briefly showed. Lots of range combat. They showed a little bit of melee, but that was definitely one of the moments where you did go, oh, oh no, oh, you wanna go over that again. Didn't look too enticing. So we're mostly focused on the range combat. Pretty much standard third-person range combat. There doesn't seem to be too many. Oh wow, this is different. Oh wow, this feels different. Right? It's pretty much the standard of headshots, trying to get cover, using some grenades here. What I did find interesting is the abilities and gadgets you can utilize. So they are abilities which are more just superhuman abilities. Then you have gadgets like mini drones, which can do a lot of damage, or they are then also abilities which are a little bit more like, well, I say magic, it's not magic in the Dune world, but you get the idea, right? You're not using the voice, that's important. You're not using the voice, but you're using something adjacent to that, which gives you some abilities here and there, which is kind of cool. And that looked really cool. I have to say that was really one of the moments where I was like, "Ooh, this looks fun. I actually want to try this" when it came to the combat. But the rest was pretty standard, right? And it seems like there are a lot of outposts you can check out. There will be dungeons where you can go to. And yes, at the end of the dungeons, there will be a big fat loot box. I love loot. So that is totally up my alley. And then they also showed a little bit of base building and crafting. So the base building, I have to say, there's not much too crazy stuff here. It's pretty much the standard, what you would expect from a survival game base building slash Unreal Engine base building, which is okay, right? This is not me complaining or why didn't you do anything crazy. I mean, if it works, right? Never touch a running system. I hope just that, like, which I see quite often in survival games, is the clicking mechanic when you are like trying to click multiple building parts together. It can be pretty infuriating. Once Human right now is one of those games where when it comes to like building especially a roof, I'm going a little bit mad. So yeah, I'm hoping they figured that out. Speaking of figured out, they also added the blueprint option where you can basically just take a blueprint of a house you have built and then you can just put it out there somewhere else. Why would you do that? Well, not necessarily for PvE, but if you move, that would definitely be of service. But this would be especially interesting later on for the PvP because the PvP area is refreshing after a week, and you don't want to start to build your house over and over again without those blueprints. And I can see how that would be pretty important. But yeah, you can also buy blueprints from other people, and there will be definitely some people who will do that. I know the first reaction of many people is, who's doing that? Who's buying blueprints? There are some people who like to do that, and I can totally see that there will be some people who will put crazy amount of time in the building. But let's talk about crafting. So the problem with crafting when it comes to equipment, they didn't show us too much. They actually showed us just a brief moment how some of the standard crafting recipes work, and they showed us a few items here and there. And good news, they have stats. They have a lot of stats. I was actually really excited about that. This was the first moment where I thought, oh my gosh, I want to take a deeper look at that. I want to do a deep dive on that. I want to see how this all works. Like, I immediately, my interest in theory crafting got kicked in, and I wanted to see more of it. Unfortunately, it was such a brief moment. I think they showed us in total 5 seconds of equipment, so there isn't really much to go by. And then the last thing I want to talk about, what they also showcased, was a little bit of the end game, so to speak. So you can basically pledge your allegiance to one of the two factions which are on Arrakis right now. Those were the Harkonnen and House Atreides. And Atreides? Always mispronounce it. And that's it. Like, the other houses are not in there yet. I'm pretty sure that would change at some point. What that really does and why you would want to pledge an allegiance, we don't know. They haven't explained. The same goes with the PvP arena. So there is the Deep Desert, which is the PvE PvP area. And as I said, it will reset every week. And the map will also apparently completely change every week. Well, that's at least what they are planning. We will see how that works. And they didn't really show much of it. They just showed that there's a lot of spice there, and this is where the spice melange is coming from, and this is where you want to go if you want to get that. Why do you need spice? Is that useful for you? Like, why would you go in there and do that? They haven't explained. They also haven't really explained how the harvesting works, how the fighting then will work there, and so on and so forth. So they haven't really talked about the PvP yet. And I mean, that makes sense because, as far as I understand, the Deep Desert got implemented into the game around, what was it, March or April? So they are still pretty early on with that. But all in all, I have to say, it looked okay. Like, I think it's in a state where most of the features are in, and now they are doing a lot of fine tuning, right? We are still missing some information here and there. As I said, we are missing the information about the PvP. We are missing so many information about the crafting. And we really have to see how that plays out. Now, when do I believe the game is coming out? They said early 2025. I wouldn't be surprised if this is getting postponed into the second quarter of 2025. And I'm not mad about it. Like, look, I've been playing Funcom games for decades. And the one thing I can definitely tell you is take your time. Like, take your time. The longer Funcom cooks, the better for us and for the game. So I don't mind if they take a little bit longer. I know that the 24/7 beta is running. I don't have access to it because, let's be honest here, they don't want to have content creators running around their servers right now, especially when it's still this relatively early in development. And I'm still looking forward to more information. As I said, I definitely had the moment of I want to know more when it came to the RPG aspects. Like, I'm hoping they're doing pretty much a deep dive on that very soon. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like. And also, if you're new to the channel, you want to see more about RPGs and survival games, you came to the right place. That's what we are focusing on here. And I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe to the channel. With that said, have a good one. Stay safe. Bye-bye.